So yeah, just to continue. So basically, then, one of the things that, I mean, all of us have had that dilemma. For example, when we've looked at Krishnaji's observations, like the observer is the observed. And initially, it used to fox everybody. When you come straight from a background of where you've done no inquiry or nothing of that sort, so that used to be quite intriguing. So same with that, same with me also. I think that seemed to be an area where I was struggling a little bit. But then the other thing that I found really intriguing was Krishnaji's observations on thought. And essentially, I think whenever we looked around and whenever I looked around, we found that we were all looking at thought as something, which is what has, made things happen, and everything that happens is because of thought. And for somebody to come and say, well, it's not that way, it's very, very different. That was, an observation, which, led us to think that maybe we can explore that. Because when we explore thought and its limitations, we are not really exploring just thought. We are also exploring the whole structure of what it creates, the me that it creates, or the ego, whatever will perhaps, like to listen from everybody about it. And then, partly because of the problems of video screening, when the internet is not very good, we realized that, I think when I was doing a session for a group in Delhi, just casually they wanted to know about Krishnamurti. And we thought that maybe we should do a reading, because reading often sets the focus. And that takes maybe about 10 minutes or so. And after the reading, I think, we can have basically a sharing among friends, actually, because it's one of those areas where there is no formality in that sense. So we try to explore with all our own, whatever observations we have, whatever queries or doubts, etc., that we have. So then I was looking for something to read from. And again, I mean, there is a wealth of things, as we all know from Krishnamurti's books and talks, and there's so much to. So it was a difficult choice, but in the end, what I did was basically I selected a piece of text from this book, which is called Network of Thought, this book, and which I found, I think just the first opening chapter seemed to actually set the tone. And then it goes to all sorts of other dimensions. So I thought maybe we could actually just do a reading from the book, from that chapter, maybe 10 minutes, as I said, and then we'll open it out for discussion. I think we'll aim to, I mean, normally we try to aim for a 60-minute, but inevitably it goes a little to 45 minutes or yes, 75 minutes or whatever. That's not a problem at all. But just so that, the momentum, as long as the momentum is there, we can, keep it going. So I'll start the reading and then we will open it up for discussion. That's fine. So as I said, we were actually talking about this book called Network of Thought. And the first chapter is titled, We Are All Caught in the Network of Thought. So as I said, I hope it won't take more than 10 to 15 minutes, but it may help to set the focus on the theme. I see some of my old friends are here and I'm glad to see you. As we are going to have 7 talks, we should go into what I am going to say very carefully, covering the whole field of life. So please be patient. Those of you who have heard the speaker before, please be tolerant if the speaker repeats himself, for repetition also has a certain value. Prejudice has something in common with ideals, beliefs, and faiths. We must be able to think together, but our prejudices, our ideals, and so on limit the capacity and the energy required to think, to observe, and examine together so as to discover for ourselves what lies behind all the confusion, misery, terror, destruction, and tremendous violence in the world. To understand not only the mere outward facts that are taking place, but also the depth and the significance of all this, we must be able to observe together, not you observing one way and the speaker another, but together observe the same thing. That observation, that examination is prevented if we cling to our prejudices, to our particular experiences, and our particular comprehension. Thinking together is tremendously important because we have to face a world that is rapidly disintegrating, degenerating, a world in which there is no sense of morality, where nothing is sacred, when no one respects another. To understand all this, not only superficially, casually, we have to enter into the depths of it, into what lies behind it. We have to inquire why it is that after all these millions of years of evolution, man, you, and the whole world have become so violent, callous, destructive, enduring wars and the atomic bomb. The technological world is evolving more and more. Perhaps that may be one of the factors causing man to become like this. So please let us think together, not according to my way or your way, but simply using the capacity to think. Thought is the common factor. Request you just to keep yourselves on mute. Thought is the common factor of all mankind. There is no Eastern thought or Western thought. There is only the common capacity to think, whether one is utterly poor or most sophisticated, living in an affluent society. Whether a surgeon, a carpenter, a laborer in the field, or a great poet, thought is the common factor for all of us. We do not seem to realize that thought is the common factor that binds us all. You think according to your capacity, to your energy, your experience, and knowledge. Another thinks differently according to his experience and conditioning. We are all caught in this network of thought. This is a fact, indisputable and actual. We have been programmed biologically, physically, and also programmed mentally, intellectually. We must be aware of having been programmed like a computer. Computers are programmed by experts to produce the results that they want, and these computers will outstrip man in thought. These computers can gather experience and from that experience learn, accumulate knowledge according to their program. Gradually, they are going to outstrip all our thinking in accuracy and with greater speed. Of course, they cannot compose as Beethoven or as Keats, but they will outstrip our thinking. So then what is man? He has been programmed to be Catholic, Protestant, to be Italian or British, and so on. For centuries, he has been programmed to believe, to have faith, to follow certain rituals, certain dogmas, programmed to be nationalistic and to go to war. So his brain has become as a computer, but not so capable because his thought is limited. Whereas the computer, although being also limited, is able to think much more rapidly than the human being and can outstrip him. These are facts. That is what naturally is going on, actually is going on. Then what becomes of man? Then what is man? If the robot and the computer can do almost all that the human being can do, then what is the future of man? When cars can be built by the robot and the computer, probably much better, then what is going to become of man as a social entity? These and many other problems face us. You cannot think anymore as Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, and Muslims. We are facing a tremendous crisis, a crisis which the politicians can never solve because they are programmed to think in a particular way. Nor can the scientists understand or solve the crisis, nor yet the business world, the world of money. The turning point, the perceptive decision, the challenge is not in politics, in religion, in the scientific world. It is in our consciousness. One has to understand the consciousness of mankind which has brought us to this point. One has to be very serious because we are really facing something very dangerous in the world where there is the proliferation of the atomic bomb which some lunatic will turn on. We must be aware of all this. One has to be serious, not flippant, not casual, but concerned to understand this behavior and how human thought has brought us all to this point. We must be able to penetrate very carefully, hesitantly, with deep observation to understand together what is happening both out there and inwardly. The inward psychological activity always overcomes the outer. However, many regulations, sanctions, decisions you may have outwardly, all these are shattered by our psychological desires, fears, and anxieties, by that longing for security. Unless we understand that, whatever outward semblance of order we may have, the inward disorder always overcomes that which is outwardly conforming, disciplined, regularized. There may be carefully constructed institutions, political, religious, economic, but whatever the construction of these may be, unless our inward consciousness is in total order, the inward disorder will always overcome the outer. We have seen this historically. It is happening right now in front of our eyes. This is a fact. So the turning point is in our consciousness. Our consciousness is a very complicated affair. Volumes have been written about it both in the East and the West. We are not aware of our own consciousness. To examine that consciousness in all its complexity, one has to be free to look, choicelessly aware of its movement. It is not that the speaker is directing you to look or to listen to all the inward movement of consciousness in a particular way. Consciousness is common to all mankind. Throughout the world, man suffers inwardly as well as outwardly. There is anxiety, uncertainty, utter despair of loneliness. There is insecurity, jealousy, greed, envy, and suffering. Human consciousness is one whole. It is not your consciousness or mine. This is logical, sane, rational. Wherever you go, in whatever climate you live, whether you are affluent or degradingly poor, whether you believe in God or in some other entity, belief and faith are common to all mankind. The images and symbols may be totally different in various localities, but they stem from something common to all mankind. This is not a mere verbal statement. If you take it as a verbal statement, as an idea, as a concept, then you will not see the deep significance involved in it. The significance is that your consciousness is the consciousness of all humanity. Because you suffer, you are anxious, you are lonely, insecure, confused, exactly like others, though they live tens of thousands of miles away. The realization of it, the feeling of it, the feeling in your guts is totally different from the mere verbal acceptance. When you realize that you are the rest of mankind, it brings a tremendous energy. You have broken through the narrow groove of individuality, the narrow circle of me and you, we and they. We are examining together this very complex consciousness of man, not the European man, not the Asiatic man, or the Middle East man, but this extraordinary movement in time that has been going on in consciousness for millions of years. Please do not accept what the speaker is saying. If you do it, it will have no meaning whatsoever. If you do not begin to doubt, begin to question, to be skeptical, to inquire, if you hold on to your own particular belief, faith, experience, or the accumulated knowledge, then you will reduce it all to some kind of pettiness with very little meaning. If you do that, you will not be facing the tremendous issue that is facing man. We have to see what our actual consciousness is. Thought and all the things that thought has put together are part of our consciousness. The culture in which we live, the aesthetic values, the economic pressures, the national inheritance. If you're a surgeon or a carpenter, if you specialize in a particular profession, that group consciousness is part of your consciousness. If you live in a particular country with its particular tradition and religious cultures, that particular group consciousness has become part of your consciousness. These are facts. If you are a carpenter, you have to have certain skills, understand the nature of wood and the tools of the trade. So you gradually belong to a group that has cultivated these special skills and that has its own consciousness. Similarly, the scientist, the archaeologist, just the animals have their own particular consciousness as a group. If you're a housewife, you have your own particular group consciousness, like the other housewives. Permissiveness has spread throughout the world. It began in the far west and has spread right through the world. That is a group conscious movement. See the significance of it. Go into it for yourself. See what is involved in it. Our consciousness includes, in the much deeper consciousness, all our fears. Man has lived with fear for generation after generation. He has lived with pleasure, with envy, with all the travail of loneliness, depression, and confusion, and with great sorrow, with what he calls love and the everlasting fear of death. All this is his consciousness, which is common to all mankind. Realize what that means. It means that you are no longer an individual. This is very hard to accept because we have been programmed, as is the computer, to think that we are individuals. We have been programmed religiously to think that we have souls separate from all the others. Being programmed, our brain works in the same pattern century after century. So I just thought this chapter is not yet over, but I thought I'd just read a bit of it just to set the tone for the discussion. It's a beautiful book, by the way. Actually, I discovered it as I was trying to sort of think about, first of all, the theme for today, and then just to think about how we might go about it. So this turned out to be a possibility of doing a bit of a reading, and then sort of 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so of reading, and then throw it open for discussion. And because it's something that is bound to be a lot of people see it from different perspectives. It'll be very interesting to see whether at the end of it all, it or some clarity emerges in ourselves. Basically, that's the may or may not emerge right now, or may not emerge, but the objective is just to see whether things somehow become clearer. So over to everybody, whoever wants to start with observations or whatever. Chaitanya has also joined from Allahabad. Seeing Chaitanya after a
Thank
long
you.
time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sending me the link.
Shamalaji, would anybody like to just sort of chip in with something so that we can take it on from there, actually? Because some of the things they all seem to be so complicated. The thought being the construct of the me and the I, and I mean, the whole business of how it's never seen differently from I mean, certainly in the world, I mean, everybody looks at thought in a different way. And here we have Krishnaji who brought in a certainly totally different perspective, which I found it very difficult because everything was all mixed up. The ego and the me and everything all part of the whole thing. So I thought it might help to just talk about it, share with each other, and then
I'll just share something. When you said you would be reading, am I audible?
yeah, little low. Thoda,
Okay.
oh, chalega, it doesn't matter.
So I was wondering which book, from which book you are taking.
This is from the book Network
Yeah,
of Thought.
I understood. I understood.
Yeah.
And I was reminded of my first acquaintance with this theme from Commentaries on Living, where it talks of thinker, thought, and thinking. That we think in these three concepts, three different, we don't connect to them, that there's one movement, that this is all together. There's a certain, we take thinker as thought as different, very obviously. That's how we grow up. So first time when you see this being questioned, that there's a division between thinker and thought, this is taken for granted. We all have been used to that, linguistically and conceptually. But here, pointing to something that is quite challenging, that are these three different concepts at all? Are these three different things? Though there are three words, they may be each having a certain function, emphasizing something, but are they really different? thinker, that the thought or thinking process brings into being a thinker. So that first time it was totally new. So that's why I was reminded of that when at 25, 26, you read this, that it's a thinking that brings into being a thinker, that there's no entity as thinker per se given, available, or independently functioning or existing.
Mm.
So that's one interesting aspect that and here he's talking of, in this passage you read out, talking about thinking together. There are many things came up actually in this whole lot of aspects here. But thinking together, that's also one theme that he often took up towards the last many years, kind of last 10 years. He's been often raising it, using this phrase, that to create a good society, we must have a good society, but that means we must think together. So is it possible to think together? Now, thinking, we don't see this as thinking together, because thinking is my brain, and my brain has its background, it has views, it has, so I can only share what I experience, what I think, and others have their own views. They can object to your views, and obviously there are different views, because view means you are looking at things, maybe the same thing from different angles. So you come up with different scenarios, different descriptions. So how can we think together? So that's, but here when I think if one goes into that, this whole thing of thinking together, I wonder whether there is any, whether it is also not the same thing when he says, can we look at things together? Look at it, look at something. No, not as an expert, as a specialist, as a, from a viewpoint of an ideology or your prejudices, but just look. Can we look? Can we listen? Can we listen to, not to the speaker, he would say often, no, not to the speaker. That's part of it. But also listen the bird sound, what your own mind is mumbling and uttering, reactions that are, objections that are coming from within. So the whole field is somewhere pointing to the whole field, where listening, watching, thinking, because thinking, if you take it as an action, it's ing, think is a verb, is an action. So action has to happen in the here and now. No, it's like senses. You taste everything here and now, not tomorrow, not in time. So that means without being burdened by the past, though the past may come handy in terms of language, in terms of descriptions, but the action is happening now. So thinking, watching, can we do it together? That means not holding on to whatever I think is my experience, my past, my thing, not holding on, not clinging to that, even though it may come as an expression, it may influence my expression and it comes out, but it's there in the field, it's being brought out for all to examine. And so is it possible to kind of swim together in the same waters? Because it's one brain. We are also so conditioned to think it's your brain, my brain. So it's basically humanity's brain. So this brain is saying something, no, is responding to some challenge in a certain way. So you express that. Say, this is what the brain is saying. It may be right, it may be wrong, because it's as conditioned. Other man is you. Each man is the same way. Thinking is common. Thought is common to all of us. And it works in a certain way. It has certain influences. It works from that programming. And so can we see, watch, and look at our programming, look at our humanities programming in the consciousness, how programmed this consciousness is and what it does. No, when it is not aware of this, what havoc it does in the world. So this is just as to begin
Right.
that aspect of thinking together, I thought would be interesting to look at.
I think Balram wanted to say something. Balram, you wanted to say something, Balram? Balram, you wanted to share something, Balram?
You're on mute, Balram.
Balram, I think you may be on mute, I think. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah, now you're okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I want to explore, when as a person, when we, the first-hand experience of when we see something, or when you feel something, or when we, the first impression before even convert into thinking, the first when you smell or see or feel, at that stage, the thinker doesn't arise because the thinking has yet not started. So if we go little slow and see that the moment the thinker starts, then the seeing or feeling that stops. And then the moment the thinking starts, then the thoughts arise. Or the thinker or the thoughts is the same thing, but it arises. And the next stage is the words coming into the picture. That means what we think, it takes the shape of words. If we stay in each stage, and then the last question I want to explore is our the thoughts are words, or there are thoughts which is do not fall into the bracket of words. So if we can explore that part, then perhaps we will be able to understand how the words, because when we talk to each other, we talk through words. But before even words coming into picture, there are 3-4 stages involved in this, what I see. I may be wrong also. But if somebody see this way, and can we stay at each stage and explore it, why one stage completes, why seeing, finish, or why it leads to thinking, why doesn't it stay in the state of seeing, and at what level the words coming into the picture. Because the moment the words coming into picture, the entire the perception is diluted. I'm for the lack of what I'm using this word, because the seeing or the feelings, they colored with the perception, and with words it more diluted, and then there is the game starts. So does somebody see it this way, or can we explore that why the seeing invariably ends every time and words take it over?
Chaitanya, any thoughts, Chaitanya, on
No,
particularly
not now.
on what Balram just shared?
I have a feeling that this thought watching often becomes an obsession with many of us. observation of thoughts, then we realize, if we do at all, actually, not just verbally, that thought and thinker are one, and the prakriya, the thinking, the thought, thinker, thinking. And but what, in my opinion, what happens is, earlier the entity that considered itself the thinker of thoughts has now become an observer of. It has become an observer of the fact that thought is arising. It has led to the creation of the thinker, the process in which they seem to be perpetually trapped is thinking. So just the change of this nomenclature doesn't bring about a very meaningful change in the psyche, because I think thought itself it's a very the meaning, it's a very clever thing. There is a comparison between the Greek marine god Proteus. That when you touch it, it changes its shape. So I'm just wondering if what was earlier a thinker has suddenly become the observer without actually undergoing any fundamental intrinsic change. Okay. There's one more question. What happens to me that I suddenly have this urge to observe my thoughts? Why do I start observing? Because somebody has said, and what he has said seems, profound, or I romanticize about it, or I think this is going to lead to some peace, some quietude, some silence. And therefore, observation has begun, or something has happened that on my own I have realized that unobserved thoughts are the source of my agitation, my trouble, and so on. So I think that this makes a big difference. Whatever somebody has said may have very profound meaning. It can be a very insightful thing. But is it something that I have perceived firsthand, directly, that thought is leading to so much of chaos, agitation, and therefore it needs to be looked at. It needs to be observed. So that's something that I think each one of us has to explore with respect to this need to observe thoughts. Why have I started observing? Have I experienced the pangs, the sting of this myself, and have come to this understanding that there is a need to observe, and observation may do something to it, because I don't know why this is doing. Even the urge to observe is something that has come from within. Not that I can't just listen to you and start doing it. It may help, but the quality of observation may change a little if the urge has been created by my very intimate experience with the trouble that thought has caused, and I can see that this needs to go. Yeah. So first question was about what is the difference if the thinker becomes now the observer, and second is, where does this urge to observe thoughts? arise from? Is it something that I borrowed? Because in my opinion, that makes a lot of difference to this whole thing of observation, observing thought, thinker thought, thinking. Yeah, that's it for now.
Yeah.
Contribute again.
So I wanted to say something.
Sorry, yes, sorry, carry
Yeah.
on. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel it's very interesting that that we are talking about observation and thinking, but what I have observed in myself and what I have seen is that um can I mean the basic question here I feel is that can you observe thought, very simply speaking, but I would like to ask, is it possible, like the moment I have seen, the moment you observe thought, who am I, what am I observing? In order to observe something, I must recognize it. So the moment I feel that I'm observing thought, at least in me I've seen that I'm actually observing based on my past experiences, based on what I have concluded before, and through that lens I'm constantly observing and coming to terms with the thinking that is happening now. And I might think that because I am observing my thoughts, there is an observation without the observer, right? I might think that, but is it, so I would put this question, that is it possible to really observe and recognize that you're observing? Is it possible for a human being, for us to look at thought and at the same time recognize that we are actually looking at thoughts? Because the moment we're looking at thoughts, who is looking at thought? Isn't it the previous fragment that has looked and come to a conclusion? Or I have listened to, say, Krishnamurti, who says, look at thought. And I think I'm looking at thought, but already the thinker is there because I know that I'm looking at thought. I'm recognizing that I'm looking at thought. So, that is my first question, that is it possible for me to look at thought and at the same time recognize that I'm looking at thought and hence some changes happen and so on, so on, so on, which then that question also implies a lot of things. It also implies that the sequence of having a thought, image, word, and so on, this whole sequence, like a mathematical sequence, how do I know this sequence is happening? Again, I might have seen it in the past, and I might have, according to the past, I've seen it, and now I'm communicating it to you. But in the present moment, if I'm really looking at thought, if I'm using that hypothesis that I'm looking at thought, how do I know the same sequence is happening again and again? Is it that I'm using the past sequence, or I've listened to somebody else and using that sequence to justify what I'm thinking right now and saying, okay, words is happening, this is blocking, that is blocking. So I think our fundamental issue here, and we need to think together, so that is also part of thinking together, is that is it how, or not how, is it possible to look at thought, and what is blocking us from looking at thought? So I think that is a fundamental issue we can discuss now.
Just one observation, sorry, just a thought
Hmm.
before we pass on to someone else to talk. Actually, just one point. I was wondering whether I can observe observation, or the fact that observation happens and you can know that observation has happened. Because I think, first, I mean, what I feel now is that maybe as long as there is a vested interest, can observation happen at all? Because, there is a keenness to look at thought, therefore keenness to improve oneself, etc., etc. I'm just wondering whether, it's like, just an analogy, some stream of light coming from somewhere, and it finds a gap in my consciousness, and for a moment something happens, something like an insight. You can call it an insight or an observation, not me observing, but an observation happening. I'm just trying to, perhaps, for most of us that may happen, but is it so that we are so caught up in this network of our own prison that despite the fact that I think we think that we are observing and we are doing this and we are doing that, whether in effect it's the same network at work? So this is just a thought, again, putting it to everybody to think about. The question is, whether observation can really happen, whether the me element, even in the subtlest form, me element being the vested interest, a vested interest which has got a belief that I will find out, I will observe, But whether that can ever, observation can ever happen as long as that is there. This is just a question again, just to put to everybody.
I mean, sorry, I just want to. So I feel what you're asking. Just clarify if I'm wrong. I think it's very. You're saying that why does the me come and hold that observation or that insight that you have had? Why does it hold it and creates a kind of a circle around that? Is that what you're asking?
No, what I'm saying, what I'm saying is that we have never really accepted the core of Krishnaji's core observation. I'm just going beyond the immediate theme, that the thought is what has constructed the me, actually, in fact.
Okay.
So because we are caught up in that construct, observation never really happens. It's the same story of, goes on and on day after day. So I'm just saying that, if perhaps this is just a thought, if the intensity is there, it may happen that, just like, there is a gap in the light in the clouds, there's a breaking through or something of light, and something happened which you can call an observation has happened, in which you don't have a stake at all. You have no credit to take for that observation.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to, see where it's a very difficult thing to express. But whether one is ever in that field when the me is not there, and therefore is that the answer, the real answer, actually. Whether observation can really happen as long as that me is there, even in its subtlest form. Even if there is a subtlest form, a belief that, somewhere along the line, it's the vested interest in the me is still there in the observation also. So whether that itself is becomes a bit of a deception. This is just a thought again to discuss, to put it to the group actually to think about.
Yeah, no, Kamalda,
Yeah.
I do, to greater extent, I agree with you. Because when you start observing, then you don't see observe. The word you observe, it doesn't, where you start it, how it could be an observation. In what I understand from the JK parlance, the observation has to happen without me. And for that, what I see is that we don't stay in the state of seeing. We very fast move into that, the state of words, the state of, because we want to accumulate, we want to try to identify what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, what is my emotion, all these things we wanted to quantify it. The moment that happens, then the me starts, then the word starts. So I want, if possible, we can stay here and explore why this ends, why this seeing, thinking, feeling, it ends abruptly and me takes over. Because when observation is something which doesn't require me, but the me doesn't stay very far away from seeing it. The moment you see something crop up, it is this good, that bad, So why it happens? Why our mind is so accumulated? Yeah, I don't know what I should call it, but why it is, do not stay in the state of seeing or the state of feeling? Why it converts into mind stuff?
Well,
Kamalji,
yeah.
just this what Balramji is saying, I was just listening to that why me takes over. This is how is me very different from any other thinking? Is it's part of thinking? Thinking is bringing into being that sense of me. Now, what is it that is objecting to it within the mind? Say, is there a thought, an idea that me should not come in? Me is something bad. Me is, this isn't that part of our general trajectory that we what is right, what is wrong, what should happen, what should not happen, what is good, what is not good. So, and is it now if me comes up and you see me comes up, if I see this is creating maybe some issue. Why is it creating an issue? Just One, the questioning is, the thought is very good for questioning. So it can always say, okay, what is my objection to it? Why do I have problem with this me? So let me look at it. So there's always at any stage, there is a problem. You look at it. Okay, what is it? Why is it coming now? It's not relevant here. It has no function here. Why does it come? How do I get this thought? No. Do I fight it? Who is fighting it? No, there's always if it is is it possible to just, as a question, I may fail, I may not manage, I may be too turbulent within. So I look at that turbulence. It is coming from maybe many sources. So it's very inner dynamism. Is it possible to look at inner dynamism without what is it that, why should it not be there? I think it's playing with it. That's how I feel. It's happening, whatever is happening. Do I break my head against it with it? I'm myself, I find myself in this word. What do I do? I find myself in this word. I don't bring myself into it. It's there. I find myself here. With all the issues outside, inside. I look at all that. What choice do I have? I have this freedom to look. And if I'm not free to look, as you're saying, free to look, I see, okay, what is it that is preventing me from looking? So question after question. Thought is good for questioning, but it can't. But if we are looking for answer in the question, I think that's where we run into trouble, because thought cannot provide you an answer. It will provide you an answer which is stale always. It doesn't have freshness, but it has capacity to give you questions, question after question, and then maybe it gets stuck and says, and that getting stuck, maybe there is a pause. Something happens. Thank you.
Niranjan, you want to share something, Niranjan? I found something interesting you were sharing.
I just shared one link from a recent research study where it was said that oftentimes the decision is made several seconds before in our mind, before we come to know of it. For example, I want to pick up this mobile phone. The decision was made a few seconds before, and then only later on it gets verbalized, or so staying with what Balramji was mentioning, it was in response to what Balramji was speaking, that from a decision being made or from an observation being happening to the second stage where thought whips up a thinker. The problem, Vijayji was mentioning that maybe it's not a problem, but for people like me, it becomes a problem because it creates a separate thinker, a separate self, who is very uh, uh, timid and petty, and who is pitted against the whole of the world. And maybe evolution has designed it that way, that maybe it's an evolutionary advantage that human species had, that the thinker which gets whipped up thinks that it is a separate self which needs to be protected. Maybe that's how we evolved and survived all of that. And what Krishnaji was mentioning in the passage which Kamalji read out, that until we know in our bones that uh, we are whole of mankind. So it looks like uh, if we know it conclusively that I am not this separate, timid, petty, tiny individual, rather I am this whole of mankind, then a lot of suffering at individual level gets solved. And somehow, again, our conditioning is that we want to solve all of our sufferings, which is why we look for, at least for me, I can say that, which is why we look for this literature and all. So if we can stay with what Balramji mentioned, that why is it that a separate thinker gets whipped up? Machines, and again, the passage which Kamalji was reading, that machines can do better thinking than us. Does a separate thinker gets whipped up in machines also? And if it's not happening there, why is it happening with us? The only motivation for me is for the cessation of suffering, because as long as there is identification with the timid self, it leads to all sorts of suffering. But somehow, if I can come to know conclusively, not intellectually but in my bones, that I'm not this tiny petty thinker who is the next stage of observing. And if some intervention can be done there, I do not know how. Maybe by knowing the way thought works, knowing how thoughts originate, knowing how this. It is also said that this thinker is a appropriation function of the brain, where brain makes sense of all of these thoughts and identifies with the separate self. Maybe if we have some insight around that, it will probably uh, help come over the division of a tiny me and the rest of mankind or rest of universe, like that. So yeah, that is what I wanted to say.
Yes. Thank you, Dhananjay. Thank you. Zahid, you're very quiet today, Zahid. Zahid?
Yeah, I was just listening. It was really very interesting topic today.
Your volume is a bit
When
low, Zahid. Your volume is a bit low. Your volume.
what about now?
Yeah.
Was listening. It was really interesting topic. It's interesting for me, especially because I have given a lot of thought or attention, or you can say. Balramji and then Surandip. When we were talking about thought, one thing is important for me when I was going through this, and still whenever we are discussing, I also thinking about it. Can you deconstruct the thought as its structure and its functionality, and the time and sequence of its involvement of different ingredients of the thought? For example, thought includes picture, sensation. I mean, all five senses. The data all we gather in our mind that appears in thought. So sounds, smells, or memories, including the emotion. These are ingredients, if I say that these are the ingredients of thought. And the functionality there is that we compare. We can compare with one ingredient with another ingredient. So the ingredient of past, and there is a simulation for future. So this is one point I want to mention here. And another thing I was came into my mind is that when we say that we observe thought, is it like that? Isn't it like that? Actually, thought is going on, and after that there is another thought which is remembering the earlier thought, and there is a millisecond or fraction of a millisecond of gap. So, and this is always happening as a loop. There is happening something, and we are remembering that, and that remembering is creating the illusion of that I'm the observer and I have decided and I have seen this and I'm observing all those things. So maybe I'm not quite clear to explain. Maybe this area that I'm observing a thought is going on, actually a thought has already gone. And this part is creating me, that I am the observer and I have done these things. Because of maybe the gap is very tiny. I mean, the gap of time is very tiny. So this is another thing I wanted to share. And Balramji was saying why we need to observe. But we have, someone has said to do this. But mind wants to understand, so maybe this is the only way to go with it, to investigate and to if there is some understanding or clarity, what other ways we have. Maybe after that there will be a surrender or something like that. That is also an idea. That's all. That's all for now.
Thank you, Zai. Thank you. So we also have Abu. Abu, you have joined for the first time. Abu, can you hear me? Abu? Abu, are you on there? Abu?
Sumitra ji is also wanting to say.
Yes, Soumitra, carry on, Soumitra. Carry on.
Is time
Hello, yes,
involved in
I'm here.
Okay,
This is my
Abu.
first time. I'm from
Yeah.
Bangladesh.
Yes, Abu. Welcome, welcome, Abu. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Actually, Jahid bhai sent me the link, and Jahid
Okay,
bhai
good, good.
informed me
So,
about this Zoom meeting.
so
So I'm
happy, Abu.
interested because I last through 2 or 3 years I'm continuously listening discourse of Krishnamurti JK. So I'm very interested and I'm very honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. We
I
are
want
also happy to have you, Abu. Very happy. Very happy.
thank you.
Yeah. Soumitra, carry on, Soumitra.
Ji, yeah.
I was wondering if time is involved in observation.
No.
Yes, Soumitra, whether time is involved in observation, that you were.
Okay.
It must be, sir.
So one of the difficulties, personally that I've had also, Chamraji will be, perhaps because we've all, is that I'm wondering whether that sometimes, leads us into a, sort of a very theoretical discussion about time and its involvement in thought. Because the way I look at it personally, this is my personal view, and then, we can share also, is that I think the biggest test is, whether one is able to see things as they are without distortion. And that sometimes is the biggest test of whether, all of it that we are discussing is, how relevant it is. Because it's a big irony, today, this morning, when I was trying to, think about today, I asked, I went into AI and just into the toying with the technology actually, and I said, can you please sum up J. Krishnamurti's thing on thought? And it gave me a most clinical observation, and very humbly at the end it said that AI is prone to error. So for further this thing, please go to this site and that site and read this and read that. So I was just wondering whether, I think one of the reasons, and it's a very mischievous thought actually, one of the reasons may be that artificial intelligence, the way we use it, if we use it properly, it does not have any psychological barriers, like, anxiety, fear, and all that. So it does not selectively decide on what, Krishnamurti has said, or what is this, or what is that, It didn't for a moment mention anything other than all the core things that were very interesting. I noted it down. I just took just one paragraph. So I was wondering, whether the more important thing is to say something that we can ourselves feel the moment we are able to see things without distortion by our own personal barriers. And we all have, I think very often it's selective watching. At times we are able to see without distortion. At times our preferences, all our weird. I'm just wondering whether I just mentioned it because sometimes I feel that discussion into, about time and thought, though very relevant, personally, I found it much more important to see whether there is a particular time when one is actually able to see things absolutely objectively. The biggest test that the psychological barrier of the me is not there, possibly. Because it's the me that distorts, presumably, I think, with all its preferences, all its weird fears, all its anxieties. So that's just to throw it in. I don't know how relevant it is, but I just threw it into the discussion.
Here I can
even
say
my-
one thing, please.
Yeah.
You say if we should trying to see what is, right?
Yeah.
But who is trying? That's the problem. Because if I organize to see something, what is that that involved me actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Involving me, because it could not be organized. It just happens, right?
Yes, yes, that's
So,
right.
because uh, what we are achieved to see by getting observation. There's mind always asking, and that's
Mhm.
the problem. That's the problem, I think.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, Abu,
Even,
one,
to
yeah,
add to that, sir,
yeah.
Dada, can I?
Yes, yes, Bharat, can you? Yeah, Bharat.
Uh, what I'm trying to say is that time comes at the moment me starts. Because if there is no me, then there is no time also. Because psychologically or physically, the me starts with a time and ends with a time. So theoretically, it is sounds so. So to evolve or to get into state of timelessness, then one has to be me-lessness. So that is the theory part. But what I'm trying to understand is when Jay Krishnamurti says we don't look at trees, we don't look at flowers, we don't even look at a single leaf, even we don't look at the our wife, our we only look at those words and those images. So it seems like we have forgot about see what it is. Even we don't see it also. We only interested in seeing our own reflection. I think that is how, because then there is no seeing. It is only from one interpretation to another interpretation, one image to another image. So we are caught in this, and that is the reason why we never get that taste of, or even if we get it also, it is for for a millisecond or for like that, that we don't be in that state of thatness. Because what I have observed is that we don't see only. Because the moment I see something beautiful, this even saying beautiful also come into the picture. Saying ugly is also coming into the picture. So this is where I think the human mind is caught up, that I cannot see something and not interpret it.
Wait. Thank you, Bharat. Thank you.
So, like, is there a way out? I want to know that. We have discussed all these challenges
Yeah,
between pure seeing and a seeing contaminated by a separate thinker.
yeah.
Like, but apart from the few milliseconds on a day-to-day basis in a sustainable way, is there a way out?
Yeah. Niranjan, I mean, just a thought actually. I'm just sharing this again, with to put it into the discussion sort of thing. Is that, like Abu was asking, Abu Sufyan was asking about, how does one get out, as you were saying. So I remember something very interesting because Krishnaji used to, I think there was a person called, a physicist called Capra, I think, and apparently he went to some talks of Krishnamurti, and Krishnamurti was talking that day in France or Italy or somewhere about thought and all these things. He was talking about these things. And he was a scientist, basically a physicist and scientist. He was getting very confused because, as we all do, about, how can you say that don't use thought and all that. He was misinterpreting in a way, actually. So then after that, he talked to his wife, and then next day, he actually went to Krishnaji in the next talk and sought a few minutes. And then he told him, "This is my dilemma. Actually, I'm a scientist. And when you say thought, don't use thought and this and that." So he was, first of all, he, sort of apparently put that to rest by saying, "Can you think of yourself only as a human being, as a start, as not even a scientist also, actually." And then initially that he was very perplexed, foxed by it, because how does that have any relevance to all this? But later on, he wrote in his book that, that particular interaction set to rest all his peculiar problems, because he realized, because the whole identification starting with, I mean, all sorts of things. It may start with being, I belong to this nation, or I might belong to this religion, or I belong to this group of communities as scientists, and therefore this and that and all that. He realized that that was the basis for which he was getting everything wrong. So in a way, actually, I think, I mean, I'm just being hypothetical. I mean, the scientist, if he was told by his government to produce a bomb or something, and because it's nationally, required, it's required. It's possible that one person will not do and will actually just go ahead and do it because he says, yes, I belong to this nationality and I have to do this and all. So that's very interesting. I was mentioning this also for Abu because I'm wondering to what extent our own identification is actually so fragmented that is it really possible to think without distortion? This is the fundamental question I'm trying to put, whether that ability to think without distortion is at all feasible as long as that the ground is not settled completely. It's these things, I mean, we notice in our day-to-day living also, we notice all these problems and how our own identification becomes a barrier in the way we behave and the way we think. And I think maybe it's that daily living area that, everything gets sorted out, not in one sweep, not in one sweep. But like to give that example of Capra, he found that somehow it got sorted out because he was suggesting to him that you get the identification problem right. What are you? Are you a human being, or are you so and so? Are you so and so? Because that starts the whole process of right thinking, so to speak, actually. So this is just, I put this across just to feed into the discussion.
Yeah, Niranjanji, even what Dadaji also said, it sound that is why, because I am something. How can I not have an say on something? So thereby, somewhere I have also read, JK says that you are nothing. This being nothing is a very, very great thing. I mean, it is to someday, in a meeting, I was a chairman of a society body, and on that day I said, I will talk nothing. Trust me that it is such a beautiful and big thing that that day it was it's like a miracle for me. It's a, that we always think I am something, I have to say something. Without me, things will be go, hey. And the same things, if somehow, if you can understand, I mean, I have understood at that day, I really feel that okay, this is a meeting, I'm a chairman and I will not say anything. Let's see how it goes. It is goes because somehow I cannot accept it, I am nothing. Though I was experimenting with it, but deep down I was thinking that I should have said this thing at that point in time. But I didn't say. Somehow I controlled it. Is, it's like a doctored observation sort of thing. But one thing I've realized on that day is that to think that you are nothing, that is something it gives impetus to see it a little better, stay with that, seeing it. That's what I want to convey.
Right. We have not yet heard from Mr. Sengupta, Adrita Sengupta, and also from Puneet. We have not, in case you want to say anything. Puneet, anything you want to say?
Hi,
Puneet.
Kamalji.
Yes, yes.
Hello, everyone. So yeah, interesting, interesting conversation. So lovely hearing everyone and the insights. So I'm just going back to the gentleman who asked, "Is there a way out?" So all the challenges we've discussed, thoughts and its limitation, and so on. So I think Vijayji in his conversation, I think pointed out very nicely that when one is, is in the kind of a state where he is kind of accepting everything as it comes and just looking at it choicelessly, without any preference, and whatever is happening, just observing it. I think when one gets into that state, then through that observation, I think something happens in that observation where even things which you didn't expect would work out that way starts to kind of go in that direction. Needless to say that when one is observing that wanting it to be wanting something should not come in, but just choicelessly looking at things as they are happening. Sometimes bad things happen, good things happen. So just looking at it in our daily life, I think day to day, and that I think changes the perspective. So I'll not go into that. That takes time, because then again you get into that gradual process, like you were saying, that we get into that improvement mode. But just looking at things as they are happening and just listening and observing things. Thoughts do have its place, and like the theme today, thoughts and its limitation. So functional thought is necessary for us. Those who are working, we could relate to it. So there are places where we would need the knowledge that we have, the historical knowledge, and it has its own value, and one has to kind of use it, and it happens on its own when one is in a state where when one is just looking at things. I think thought and the past knowledge also comes very handy in solving the day-to-day problems, and the insights come, and that insight sometimes too comes from the past. There are sometimes there are things which are fresh, which are very new, but there are some insights which do come from you have read something long back, or it was in your mind long back, but that insight comes and helps you to solve the problem. So yeah, that's just my submission. So just to sum it up, so one, the answer is, how do we deal with it in day-to-day life? Is just, I think, looking at things choicelessly, and trying to be in that mode as long as we can be. It's tough in practice, easier said than done, but I think that helps. That has helped me personally. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Puneet. Thank you. Adrita, কিছু বলবেন? Adrita, কিছু বলবেন? Would you like to say something?
Actually, I am Amar Sengupta.
Oh, Amar, right.
It's my
That's why I was wondering,
daughter's.
because I saw the name, it sounded different.
Actually, also, like, you are doing the great job. Actually, whatever we are talking in this field, I think that we should practice first, and all these answers will reveal itself. Whatever the questions we hear arising, all will be get resolved through the practice, with choiceless awareness, if we practice day-to-day life, and where we will see that there will be diversity without capacity. That's my saying. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Amar. Thank you. So we have only two more to ask, whether they'd like to say something. One is Purushottam ji, kuch kahenge, Purushottam ji?
No, it's okay, sir.
So Purushottam ji has been coming to our center from very recently. So he confesses that he is still to jump into all this. He had gone to Vasant Vihar. From there, when he came back, he came to our center once. Ayon, kishu bolbe naki? Ayon, would you like to say something, Ayon?
No, sir. Just I wanted to say the AI thing. AI doesn't have anything like thinking process. It's just they are using statistics to throw the words out. That's using context, and they don't have any feeling, thoughts, and me or something like that. It is just pure mathematical models they are using, and they are taking a context of the words, and then they are throwing the next word. So it's completely it's not living thing. So it doesn't have something. It doesn't think. It doesn't also have relationship. So we have to deal with that also.
That's true. No, I was just joking, when I was mentioning about that AI, because ironically, it's able to look at the data absolutely objectively. Of course, I agree, it has got no problems like us. We have psychological barriers, hundreds of psychological barriers. But because it doesn't have that, it produces the most amazing analysis. And also at the end, I think it has got used to saying also, I may be wrong. It says that also at the end, I may be wrong. To be safe, please visit so-and-so site, listen to Krishnamurti's this book or that. So it's one of the good things about technology, the irony being that because it's got none of those psychological issues, it can see things and use data very objectively. That's what I wanted to say. So on that note, I think because we are approaching almost near one, so unless anybody else wants to share something that you would like to sort of say, you may have missed out saying earlier, then we can do that, and after that we can conclude. So it looks like we've had a very good discussion, because I think
No,
one of the
just a-
things that is very difficult.
just-
Chaitanya,
Just
can
a couple of questions. Like,
Chaitanya, carry on.
can thought observe? I'm just giving a few questions.
Can thought observe? Yeah.
Can thought observe? Can thought be choiceless? When we say choiceless awareness, where does that choiceless awareness come from? Thought certainly can ask questions, but will thought ask a question that threatens its own survival? It can ask all kinds of questions, but will it ask a question that may eventually wipe it out of existence? Like the kind of question that Krishnaji asks. So can thought, thinking about something doesn't seem to be the same thing as being aware of the same thing. Then can thought be choiceless? If thought cannot be choiceless, where does choiceless awareness come from? And can thought ask a question which threatens its own survival? I just wanted to ask these questions.
Interesting question.
We may think about them after this meeting too.
Just one small thing, Kamalji.
Yes.
About this choice, this makes me think, maybe we think we have choices. No? Do we have? Also a question only. Often we think we assume maybe. We live by that. We think we have choices. No? Not that we don't have. So just, but this question can emerge. And because often what we know, we don't always realize that we think we know. No? May not be true. So I think questions have a way, and if, of course, thought may not know that it is getting threatened.
Yeah.
So it will ask. It doesn't know.
Maybe.
So
Yeah, I think the same thing applies to choice, Vijayji. Like when I reject one thing and choose another, I don't know that they could be actually the same thing, not very different from each other.
Yes.
So that leads me to think that this is better, this is worse. I reject the worse, choose the better, not knowing that they could be the same.
That is also a judgment.
Sir.
Yeah, but still entanglement there, no? So
Yes.
yeah. So, but that mind sees that there's this. Actually, I don't know. No, at least can be that there can be that situation where I'm not sure. I don't know, but I either accept some pressure, and in that confusion I do it. So choices of it's almost a cultural belief, that choice, freedom is choice. Of course, in certain areas you have choice apparently, and there is no conflict there. But very often we think we have a choice, but you find yourself in this world in a certain situation, and you start questioning, reflecting, and you say, well, I'm here. This is my starting point. This is where I am. So, and I assume things. Yes, I assume things. So, do I have to? Question, because questions are possible. You see, this capacity is there in the brain to go on questioning. It has its own rhythm. It has, as somebody was saying, conclusive feeling in the bones, something like that came, But whether you are the whole or whether you are that petty, both are somewhere you are, choosing one expression against the other. That's also it's an assumption. It's also some kind of judgment, which can be questioned. So all your judgments can be questioned. All my judgments can be questioned. So there's always this the very questioning, the brain's own capacity is offering that fluidity. So why do I buy rigidity and somewhere not pay attention to the fluidity? The question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chablaji. Thank you. So I think because we are approaching 1 o'clock, and this has been a really very lovely discussion, because I didn't realize almost 1.5 hours. And so thank you everyone for joining today. And just to remember that, we should be in touch with each other. We are available on Gmail, etc. And as usual, I'll be sending a follow-up email. So we can continue the dialogue, sort of going, regardless of whether we actually happen to meet formally here or informally on Zoom, but we can keep that dialogue open. It's been so good to see friends from all over the place, from Abu and Zahid from Dhaka, Chaitanya from Allahabad, Niranjan from Jodhpur, and very good, Purushottam from Kolkata, Balram from Mumbai. So it's great. Soradeep presently from Tamil Nadu. Thank you so much, and till we meet again. Thanks.
Before
Goodbye.
closing, may I ask one question for everyone? Is there anyone who didn't practice meditation, some kind of? Anyone we are here who didn't do any kind of meditation? Is there anyone? This is the question, please.
No one, Chablaji, no?
Kind
Zahid
of
is asking,
meditation.
does anybody do meditation? Practice meditation.
Your question is whether anybody who is not practicing any
Yes,
kind of
yes, right.
meditation? Is that the question?
Yeah, right.
I
Is there
don't think-
anyone who
Well, I
did
don't know
not
what-
do
So Zahid, you're saying, is there anyone who practices?
I don't do,
think
sir.
I've practiced any meditation.
No,
I don't know what it is.
don't do, but did you practice? For example, 3 months,
No,
1 year, 2 years.
I didn't do meditation or practice for last 10 years, sir. Before that, I was doing a lot of things, sir, but last 10 years I have not been doing.
Yeah, but you have a history. I want to know if there
Yes.
is anyone who does not have any history of doing meditation.
I have a full history, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very curious because I feel like there is a value of doing meditation. What I'm not talking about JK, what he meant by meditation. It's trying, it's the ultimate target is self-inquiry from my point of view. I think, I wonder if there is possible to come to this gathering or this situation of having interest on knowing all these things without any kind of meditation or something like that, or any kind of self-inquiry. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
Couple
There's
of
a
days
difference
back,
between self-inquiry and the meditation that is normally understood.
Yes.
So maybe everybody is doing meditation in his own way, which some may not recognize as meditation.
So Zahid, somebody I was watching something just before we conclude. I was watching something on telephone on the mobile, and somebody was there who was talking about meditation, and he said something very nice, because he was saying that somebody was talking about doing meditation, and he corrected. He said, meditation happens. And so that was very interesting, because in a sense, perhaps we also feel that though we are very keen to be in that space, I would call it that space, where we are free from ourselves, basically. I mean, our own problem is ourselves only. It's very ironical. A lovely quotation I think I was attributed to Rumi. It may not be attributed to Rumi, where he says, protect yourself from your own thoughts. Very ironical, but very interesting. Anyway,
And that will not be choiceless.
thank you very much, everybody. And till we
Thank
meet
you.
again, just to say thank you once again for joining today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
all.
you. Thank you very
Hope to
much.
see you again.